Dizziness hit me somewhere between mile marker 47 and the Texaco off I-70, the kind that starts behind your eyes and spreads outward like ink dropped in water. I pressed my palm flat against the passenger window and told myself to breathe through it. Just breathe. You've been doing this for 11 weeks. You know what it feels like. It passes. It didn't pass. Pull over, I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended, the way your voice does when your body is staging a full revolt and your brain is still trying to negotiate. My husband kept his eyes on the road. His mother was in the back seat, and I could feel her looking at me the way she always looked at me, like I was a weather event she'd been forced to accommodate. We're 40 minutes out, he said. I know. I need 30 seconds, please. He exhaled through his nose, that particular exhale. The one that meant, here we go again. He pulled onto the shoulder and I got the door open just in time. I crouched in the gravel with my hands on my knees and my eyes closed, and I thought about the ocean, the way my mother used to describe it, wide and indifferent, and somehow still calming, and eventually the worst of it passed. The nausea ebbed back like a tide. I straightened up. My knees were dusty. My mouth tasted like copper and shame. I turned back to the car. It was gone. Not gone like he'd pulled forward 10 feet. Gone like taillights disappearing around a curve. Gone like he had a destination, and I was no longer part of the route. I stood there on the shoulder of I-70 in eastern Colorado with the gas station half a mile back, and nothing in front of me but highway and open sky, and I genuinely could not process what I was looking at. Or wasn't looking at. The absence of it. My purse was in the car. My phone was in the car. My water bottle, my prenatal vitamins, the receipt from the ultrasound I'd been keeping in the outer pocket because I liked looking at it. All of it in the car, getting smaller. The gas station sign was old and sun-bleached, missing the second A in gas. The woman at the register had the look of someone who had seen a lot of things come off that highway and stopped being surprised by any of them. She handed me a bottle of water without being asked when she saw my face. You need me to call someone? I almost said yes. I almost said my husband's name, gave her his number from memory, let her be the one to make that call. But something stopped me, something that felt less like pride and more like clarity, a sudden, sharp understanding that I did not want to watch him decide whether or not to come back. No, I said. Thank you. Can I use your phone to call a friend? My best friend answered on the second ring. She's the kind of person who picks up even when she doesn't recognize the number, because she says you never know, and she's right, you never do. I told her where I was. I told her what had happened. There was a silence on her end that felt careful and deliberate, the way her silences always are. She's a paralegal. She knows how to hold space without filling it with noise. Don't call him, she said finally. I wasn't going to. I mean it. Don't call, don't text, don't give him the chance to explain it away. Can you get to a Walmart? There was one in the town 12 miles east. The woman at the register called her cousin, who drove a dented F-150 and didn't ask a single question the entire ride, which I will be grateful for until I die. I bought a prepaid phone for $38 and a pair of sandals because mine had been in the car along with everything else. And I sat in the McDonald's across the parking lot and I ate French fries because my body had decided it wanted French fries and I was in no position to argue with my body anymore. I called my best friend back on the new number. Okay, she said. Here's what we're going to do. My husband's name is Brett. We met at a work conference in Denver 5 years ago. He was in logistics. I was in marketing. We were both at the free bar at the same time on the second night, which is how a lot of things start. He was funny in a way that felt effortless, easy to be around. The kind of man who makes you think this is what it's supposed to feel like. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, his parents' backyard in Fort Collins, his mother in a dress the color of a bruise, smiling in a way that never quite reached her eyes. I should have paid more attention to the smiling. She called my pregnancy the situation for the first 3 months. Not to be cruel, she said. She said it in front of Brett, who nodded. But because they wanted to be careful. To wait. To make sure everything was going to be okay before they got attached. I sat with that word, attached, and turned it over in my mind for a long time. Like the baby was a jacket on clearance they weren't sure they wanted to commit to. Brett never corrected her. That was the thing I kept coming back to. Not what she said, but what he didn't. I found a rental car place 30 minutes away. My best friend read me her credit card number over the phone. Pay me back whenever. Don't even think about it right now. And I drove the 90 minutes home with the windows down and a country station playing something twangy and sad, which felt right. Our house is in Aurora. We bought it 2 years ago. A 3-bedroom craftsman with a porch that needs repainting and a backyard that gets good afternoon light. I'd been calling it our house for 2 years, but standing in the driveway with the rental car running behind me, I noticed for the first time that my name was on the mortgage too. Mine and Brett's. Equal. I'd done the paperwork. I'd sat across from the notary and signed every page. I had a spare key in the magnetic box under the back deck, the one I put there after locking myself out twice in our first year. Brett didn't know about it. It was one of those small private preparations, the kind you make without knowing why, that turns out to matter enormously. The house was quiet. I walked through each room slowly, the way you do when you're trying to see something familiar with new eyes. The kitchen where I'd cooked 600 dinners. The hallway where we'd argued and made up and argued again. The nursery we'd started painting but hadn't finished. One wall a soft sage green and the rest, still the old tenant's beige. I sat down on the floor of the nursery and I let myself cry. Not the polite kind, not the kind you do with your jaw set and your back straight. The real kind. The ugly, exhausted, what is happening kind. I cried until I was empty, and then I sat there in the quiet. And the light shifted through the window and I thought, okay, what now? I moved my things to the guest room, the one off the hallway, the one with the good closet, and I locked the door. Then I called my best friend again and told her I was home. Good, she said. Now we document. She walked me through it. I went through our joint accounts on my laptop, the checking, the savings, the investment account Brett had set up 3 years ago that I'd never paid much attention to because he said he was handling it. I screenshotted everything. Balances, transaction histories, the recurring transfer that had been moving $200 a month from our savings into an account I didn't recognize. I'd never noticed it because it was small enough to disappear into the noise of regular expenses. But it had been happening for 14 months. Which meant somewhere out there was nearly $3,000 that had been quietly relocating itself without my knowledge. My best friend told me to send everything to her email. And don't touch the accounts, she said. Don't move anything. Don't let him know you've seen it. What is it? I asked. I don't know yet, she said. But I want to find out before he does. Brett came home at 9:17. I know, because I was lying in the guest room with the light off, watching the minutes on the prepaid phone. I heard the garage door, his footsteps in the kitchen, the refrigerator opening. Then nothing. Silence that stretched long enough that I knew he'd noticed the lights were off, noticed the quiet, was recalibrating. Then his footsteps in the hallway. He stopped outside the guest room door. Nadia. I said nothing. Nadia, I know you're in there. I saw the rental car. I lay very still in the dark, and I thought about the woman on the shoulder of I-70 and her sock feet. I'd taken my shoes off before I got out, the way you do when you think you'll be getting right back in. And I thought about the $38 phone and my best friend's credit card number and the woman at the gas station who handed me water without being asked. I need to explain, Brett said. My mother, she told me you'd wanted to be left, that you said you needed space. I didn't. I should have waited. I should have come back. I closed my eyes. She told me you'd wanted to be left. I had said no such thing. I had said pull over. I had said please. Those were the only words I had said, and his mother had been sitting 3 feet away when I said them. Nadia, come on. It was a miscommunication. I thought about that word, miscommunication. The particular violence of applying a neutral word to something that wasn't neutral at all. I did not open the door. He knocked twice more. Eventually the footsteps retreated. I heard him on the phone, his voice low, then lower. and I knew without question who he was calling. I texted my best friend he's home. Said his mother told him I wanted to be left. I never said that. She responded in 40 seconds, I know. Save that. I didn't sleep much. I lay in the dark and listened to the house and tried to build a clear picture of the last 3 years. The kind of picture you can only see once you stop being inside it. Brett's reluctance to discuss the pregnancy with anyone until I was past 12 weeks. His mother's presence at every appointment I'd invited her to, and the way she filled the room with her opinions until there was no air left for mine. The way Brett had started, slowly, and then all at once, referring to my ideas in the past tense. You used to want that. You used to care about that. As though I were a previous version of myself, he was patiently waiting to update. I fell asleep around 3 and woke at 6 to my phone buzzing. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize, then another. Then, pick up. It's me. And finally, I need to know you're okay. My mother is worried. I set the phone down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. There was no way he had this number. It was a prepaid phone I bought 12 miles from nowhere at a Walmart. Paid for in cash from the emergency 20 I'd had folded in my coat pocket. He didn't know about the coat pocket. He didn't know about the coat pocket. He didn't know about the 20. He hadn't asked how I'd gotten home. My best friend called 2 minutes later. Did he text you on the new phone? Yes. A pause. He called you on the old one too, probably right after you left. Went to voicemail. But the new number? She paused again, thinking. Did you text me from that number before you texted him? I texted you first. I never texted him. So he got it from me, she said. Not a question. Or he got it from your carrier. If your phones are on the same plan and your carrier has linked accounts, he might have been able to see a new number activate on the account. I sat up. We were on the same phone plan. Had been for 3 years because it was cheaper. I had walked into a Walmart and bought a prepaid phone to get some distance, and my own phone plan had handed him the number. I made a note of it. Every detail matters. My best friend had said that early on, and she was right. I showered, dressed, ate the last of the saltines from the nightstand. Then I unlocked the guest room door and walked into the kitchen. Brett was at the counter. His mother was sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of coffee, in my chair, the one nearest the window. She looked up when I came in. Her expression did something complicated, not quite guilt, not quite defiance, something in between that I didn't have a word for. Good morning, I said. Nadia, she set down the mug. I think we should talk. I agree. Brett moved to stand beside her, which told me everything I needed to know about where the lines had been drawn. Yesterday was, she started. You told my husband I wanted to be left on the side of the road. A pause. I told him he needed space. You seemed overwhelmed. I was vomiting, I said. I was 11 weeks pregnant, and I was vomiting on the shoulder of the highway. That's not needing space. That's being sick. You're very sensitive, she said, in a tone that made the word sensitive mean something else entirely. I'm pregnant, I said, and this is my house. She blinked. I'd like you to leave. Brett put his hand up. Nadia. Brett, I'd like to talk to you alone, and I'd like your mother to leave first. The silence that followed had texture to it. His mother looked at him. He looked at the floor. Something passed between them. The particular currency of people who have been making decisions together for a long time. And then she stood, collected her purse, and walked out without another word. The front door closed behind her with a click that felt surgical. Brett turned to me. You didn't have to do that. She was in my chair. That's not the... Brett. I set my phone on the counter between us, screen up. I had pulled up the banking app before I walked in. The savings account, the transaction history, the recurring transfer. What is this account? He looked at the stream, then back at me. Then at the screen again, and something shifted in his face. A recalibration, the same one I'd heard through the door the night before. That's just 14 months, I said. $200 a month. I've been looking at these statements for 3 years and I never noticed it. I noticed it last night. It's nothing. It's a personal account just for... For what? He stopped. Brett. For what? He sat down at the table. He pressed his fingers against his forehead and looked very tired, and in another version of this conversation, I might have felt sorry for him. I was working on not feeling sorry for him. It was for if things went wrong, he said. Just a cushion in case. In case of what? In case we didn't make it. The words dropped into the room like something heavy. I thought about the nursery, the sage green wall we picked out together, the one he'd said he loved, the one I'd painted while he was at work because I wanted to surprise him. I thought about the ultrasound receipt in the outer pocket of my purse, still in his car. How long have you been planning for us to not make it? I asked. You didn't answer, which was, in its own way, an answer. My best friend had referred me to a family law attorney the night before, a woman who specialized in what she called financially complex divorces. Her words, said without drama, like it was a weather category. We had a phone consultation at 11. I sat in the backyard in the afternoon light and I talked to her for 45 minutes and she told me 3 things. First, that Colorado was an equitable distribution state, meaning marital assets would be divided fairly, not necessarily equally. Second, that any funds transferred out of the joint account without my knowledge or consent during the marriage would likely be considered a marital asset. And third, that the house, in both our names, with a mortgage in both our names, was not something either of us could simply walk out of without a legal process. You're in a stronger position than you might feel right now, she said. I don't feel weak, I said, which surprised me as I said it. I feel like I've been asleep. She made a small sound that might have been approval. That's a good place to start. Brett moved to the guest room. I kept the master bedroom, the joint accounts, the car I'd had before we married. I found a therapist who took our insurance, and I made an appointment for the following Thursday. I told my OB at my 12-week appointment what was happening, and she squeezed my hand and said, "Babies are resilient, and so are mothers, and these 2 things are related." The hardest part was the evenings. We moved around each other in the house like satellites in degrading orbit, polite, careful, afraid of the gravity between us. He offered to cook dinner twice. I said no thank you both times. Not out of cruelty, but because I was genuinely not ready to sit across from him and have it look like anything normal. One night, about 3 weeks in, he knocked on the bedroom door. Can I come in? No. A pause. I want you to know that I'm sorry for leaving you on the road. I shouldn't have listened to her. I shouldn't have. His voice broke on something. I've been letting her make decisions that weren't hers to make for a long time. I didn't see it until... Brett. Yeah. I believe that you're sorry, I said through the door. I believe that you mean it right now. But I've been watching you not see things for 3 years, and I need you to understand that sorry doesn't put me back on the shoulder of I-70 and make a different choice. Sorry is what you do after. I needed you to do the right thing before. A long silence. Okay, he said. Okay. He didn't knock again. The divorce was filed 6 weeks later. The attorney negotiated the asset split, including the transferred funds, which were returned to the marital estate before division. I kept the house. We agreed on a buyout. His parents helped him with his half, which was the most useful thing his mother had ever done for me. I got a refinance on the mortgage in my name alone, which took 4 months and a lot of paperwork, and a loan officer named something I've already forgotten, who kept saying you're doing great in a way that felt like he meant it. The nursery is finished now. The whole room is sage green. I did the last 3 walls myself on a Saturday afternoon with the playlist my best friend made for me, and the windows open to let out the paint smell. I put my hand flat on the finished wall when I was done, the way you do when you want to feel that something is real and solid. The baby is a girl. We found out at 20 weeks, on a Tuesday in a room with a sonogram tech who pointed at the screen and said, "Right there, see?" And I saw. I've started telling people her name, though I'm keeping it here for now, keeping it in the space between knowing and saying, the way you carry something precious before you put it down somewhere permanent. What I'll tell you is what I said to my best friend the night I drove home on I-70 with the windows down and the country station playing. She asked me how I was doing. She asked it the way people do when they want the real answer, not the polite one. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about the gravel under my feet, and the water I didn't have to ask for, and the $38 phone and the spare key under the deck. I thought about the sage green wall and the ultrasound receipt and the 45-minute phone call with an attorney who said you're in a stronger position than you might feel. I think, I said, but I've been waiting for someone to hand me my own life back. And I think I just stopped waiting. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, that's the one. That's the sentence. She was right. It was. I keep thinking about that woman at the gas station off I-70, the one who handed me water before I even asked. She didn't know me. She didn't know what had just happened or what was about to. She just looked at my face and understood that something was wrong, and she did the right thing without being asked. I think about her more than I think about Brett some days. There's something I've had a long time to sit with now, and it's this. What happened to me on that highway wasn't a miscommunication. It wasn't a bad day or a moment of poor judgment. It was the accumulated weight of 100 small choices. His choices, and honestly, some of mine too, that had been building for years before they finally tipped over on a gravel shoulder in eastern Colorado. The cause was already there. What I saw that day was just the effect catching up. I'm not saying that to be bitter. I'm saying it because it's the most useful thing I've learned. Outcomes don't come from nowhere. Brett didn't wake up that morning a different person than he'd been the day before. His mother didn't suddenly become someone who would lie to her son to remove a pregnant woman from a car. These things had always been true. I just hadn't let myself see them clearly enough to act on what I was seeing. That's the part that took me the longest to forgive myself for. Not the marriage, not even the trust I'd placed in the wrong person, but the way I had quietly, consistently overridden my own judgment. I'd seen the signs. I'd felt the wrongness of certain moments and filed them away under sensitive or overreacting or not worth the argument. I had all the information. I just hadn't respected myself enough to use it. What I understand now is that clarity isn't a gift, it's a discipline. It requires you to look at what's actually in front of you instead of the version of it you'd prefer to see. And that takes a kind of honesty that I had to build deliberately, one uncomfortable conversation at a time, starting with the one I had with myself on the floor of that nursery. My best friend used to say that the smartest thing a person can do in a crisis is slow down and think before they act. Not freeze, think. There's a difference. Panic spends energy without direction. Strategy builds something. Every decision I made after that highway, the prepaid phone, the documentation, the attorney, the conversation with Brett in the kitchen, came from choosing to think instead of react. That discipline, that steadiness under pressure, is what got me through. And then there's the getting up. I want to name that separately because I think it gets underestimated. Getting up off the floor of the nursery after I cried everything out, getting up and eating the saltines and calling my friend and doing the next thing, and then the thing after that. Nobody was coming to hand me my life back. I had to decide to go get it. That decision, quiet, unglamorous, made alone in a room nobody saw, is the one I'm most proud of. The baby is asleep in the sage green room right now, and the house that is mine. I painted those walls. I made those choices. I did that work. The water was free. Everything else I earned.